When we start going ahead and working on trunk stability, the first place we got to start is with stabilization. More importantly, stationary stabilization. So I'm going to take you through just some simple stationary exercises you can do to start working on your trunk stability without incorporating a lot of movement. First one's very simple. Just go ahead and put the band on your back and go ahead and start doing a resisted plank. Very simple. Now obviously besides a resisted plank in front, we can also do a side plank and work on stepping that. Remember, if that's too strong, you can always take your lower body out of it and just work in this position. The same thing with the resisted plank here. If it's too difficult to go ahead and do it in a full position like this, you can always drop your knees down, keep them light, and work on a resisted plank like that. Now, that's great, but it's in a prone position. So let's take you into a standing position now, and let's work some isometric work in standing. So in standing, we can go ahead and do anti-rotational planks. This is basically a standing plank, but we're creating a rotational vector that's going to make us have to stabilize. We can go into an overhead side plank, all right? So now this is working on anti-side bending, and we're going to have to stabilize in that position. And then lastly, an isometric, we can go ahead, put ourselves in this position and work anti-extension, where we have to work on our plank in standing this way. So there's some ways to go ahead and start incorporating the isometric component of your trunk stability, which is where you want to start. Develop your time, endurance, working for getting your strength built up that way before we go on to the next level of progression. Okay guys, Dave Schmitz, ResistanceBandTrain.com. I want to go ahead now and take your trunk stability to another level. And how we're going to do that is by incorporating mobility. Yeah, we're going to use the similar exercises that we talked about in the stationary component, but now we're going to bring mobility into it. So you want to take it in. So let's take that plank exercise that you did previously, where we had to just lock it out. Now we're going to add some mobility by just doing some simple knee taps. Low amplitude, slow mobility exercises that require your trunk to now have to stabilize while something else is happening. In this case, we're just doing some simple knee ups. Another way to go ahead and do that would be to do some simple mountain climbers. But again, a lot of times what I see when people are doing mountain climbers is their low back starts to rock and move around. You should be able to keep a cup of water or a plate on your back without it tipping off while you're doing your mountain climber. What about side planks? Yeah, we could go ahead and drop into it. Here's our side plank exercise, but now we're going to add mobility by just bringing our foot into it. So now we've got to stabilize by using that foot to create mobility. We could also go ahead and bring in a hip drop by working on our hip drop. Again, we're bringing in low-level mobility while we're going ahead in working out of our stationary position. What about in standing? Well, standing, very easy. We can just go ahead and bring in circle movements with our arms. We can go ahead and bring in some oscillation movements with our arms, overhead, circles, and the same thing here. So now what we're doing is we're creating a little bit of mobility, all right, so that our lower body, our trunk has to adapt to that mobility. That's the second level of progression. Super easy to go ahead and a lot of times bring that kind of mobility right into your stationary exercises. So it's a very smooth progression from stationary training to mobility training when it comes to training your trunk. Morning guys, Dave Schmitz, ResistanceBandTrain.com. I want to talk to you today about the third and most challenging progression that you want to work your way up to when it comes to developing great trunk stability, and that is integration. Yeah, we want to go ahead and get your entire body involved in an exercise that's going to require your trunk to stabilize in order for you to be successful with that exercise. Let me show you some simple ways to go ahead and bring in integration. Let's go into our plank exercise. And we've talked about the plank being isometric, and we talked about adding the mountain climber in. Well, now what we're going to do is we're going to add a crawl. So we're going to get our entire body into the exercise. We can go forward, we can go backward, but the key by using the band is making sure your trunk really locks in and stays stable while you're getting your upper body to start integrating, doing, in this case, crawling movements. That's one way you can go ahead and bring in integration right into your plank exercise. Let's talk about how you can go ahead and bring in integration with attached situation, you know? So one of the ways we can do it is just by adding a step. Yeah, so we go into our plank exercise and we work on adding a step. Now, if it's too hard for you to hold in that position, bring it in here, shorten the lever arm, and add that step. Want to make it more challenging? Take the release away. Yeah, this is where our trunk really has to learn how to stabilize when we take away that release. You can go up here, put it long, however you want, and then add that release in. This is a great way to bring in integrated trunk stability. It's just by letting that foot come off. As soon as that foot hits, the other one comes off, but we're keeping our trunk in the center. Doing that really teaches your trunk how to go ahead and start stabilizing when your feet and your hands start to move. Let's talk also about chops. You know, a lot of people do chops and they work on doing this movement, but honestly, where the chop is most important is the reverse. Yeah, we call it reverse chops. And so what we're working on is controlling that. Yeah, we're gonna come down slow and work at coming back fast. Can we bring our foot into it? Absolutely. We can go ahead and bring a step into it, but right there is what we're working on. This movement of chopping down is not the key. The downward movement is not the important part of the chop. It's the reverse. It's stabilizing up here with the band. So there's an example of how you can go ahead and really start bringing in integration into your trunk stabilization program. Third and most difficult progression. So make sure you've gone through the progressions of stationary, easy mobility before you start bringing in that fully integrated situation.